Hey beautiful friends, my name is Namuna Sise, she, her, hers, and I'm going to be your instructor for the self-tape class at Woolly Mammoth. I'm super excited to get into the Zoom room with you and practice some monologues and some sides, kind of coach you through what makes a good self-tape and what doesn't. But as we were kind of creating this idea curriculum, like deciding what this class was going to be, some very smart people over at Woolly Mammoth decided that instead of kind of taking up class time to talk about some of the basics and the fundamentals of how to make a good self-tape, that I should just create a video that you all can see before the class to kind of talk through like some equipment that you should have or might want to invest in, and also just some of the basic things to think about when you're creating a self-tape, so that when we're actually in the room we can focus on like the storytelling and the character development and all of that stuff. So I'm going to take you through some of the things, starting with equipment. So here goes. Okay, so first things first, let's talk about background. So what most people do with self-tapes is they find like a blank white wall in their apartment or their home, right? Which is totally cool, totally a great thing to do if you don't have the money to invest in a different type of background. So that's what I used to do for a very long time. And then when I signed with my manager, one of the first things that she told me to do was to invest in a blue background. So that's what you see here behind me. It's kind of like a green screen, except for it's blue, because what it does is it kind of makes you pop, right? If you can see in this frame, like it's very clear, like, you know, who I am, what I am, where my body is, how my body is moving. You can see my face very clearly against this kind of background. Now, I am a person of color, right? A BIPOC person, and so it's not as important necessarily for a BIPOC person because we already kind of stand out against a white background, but especially for those of you that are very fair, it's a good thing to invest in a blue background. So you may also notice that my lighting is not quite as good as it was when I introduced myself in the clip prior. So this is me with no extra lighting. I'm in my tiny little bedroom right now, and all I have is a window with side light over here, right? So this isn't terrible lighting, like you can see my face, but it's clear that I haven't done anything extra for good lighting, right? So next we're going to talk about what sort of lighting do you need. Okay, so here I am with front lighting, okay? So hopefully you could see the difference between just side natural light and actual front lighting. So what I have invested in is what's called a ring light. They have them all over the internet, so you can find them. Mine is a really big one, but they also have smaller ones that you can put on tables. And what's great about the one that I have and the one that you should get is that it's dimmable, right? So I can kind of, this is with it completely off, and then you can kind of find exactly what lighting works for you based on kind of the natural light that's in your space, right? So this is really great because no matter what time of day you're shooting, you can find the right type of lighting for you. So I'm going to show you what my ring light looks like. Okay, so here is both my ring light and the blue background here. So if you recall, in the very first video where I introduced myself, I was in front of that white wall, but it wasn't quite big enough. Like you could see my bed frame in the background. It was just not great, right? There were things in the frame that were distracting. So this blue thing is fantastic because it covers whatever you need to cover in the back. And I'm obsessed with this ring light because it's tall, it doubles as a tripod, which is definitely something that you are going to need to invest in as well. I mean, this video here, I'm just holding it in my hands and you can see like it's much more shaky, so it's not a great way to go. This ring light is great because there is an orange thing. These things clip off. And then there's also like a more white light one, so depending on your skin tone, depending on the time of day, you can change the type of light. A lot of the ring lights also just have like different white light color options, so you just kind of click a button and it changes the color. And I recommend investing in something where you can kind of pick the color, because like pure white light doesn't necessarily always work. So there you go. There's the blue background and there is the ring light. Amazing. So those are a couple of things that you need in terms of equipment. As you can see, I'm kind of playing with lighting here just so you can kind of see different things. So this is just the ring light. I closed the blinds for the window so that there was no natural light coming in from the side. I also turned off my regular light in my room. So this is just the ring light and some twinkly lights that I have in my room as well. So another thing that you have to think about, right, is the camera that you're going to use. So I kind of get this question a lot. It's like, can I use my iPhone camera? You can definitely use your iPhone camera. Don't think that you have to go out and invest in some fancy camera. If you want to do that, great. If you already have a fancy camera, great. But I also kind of think that the iPhone is just an easier way to go, right? Because you can also then edit everything just on your phone and send it off, very easy. I'll talk about editing in a second. So I have an iPhone 6S, very old, and it works totally fine. I do all of my self-tapes off of my iPhone 6S. If you have like an iPhone 10 or higher, you have an even better camera, right? So it's gonna look even better than mine, so that's fantastic. Great, so let's talk editing. So I just use iMovie on my phone. Like I said earlier, it's very easy that way because what I get to do is I get to just shoot my self-tape on my phone. As soon as I'm finished, I can upload all my clips to iMovie and edit it all on my phone. And then as soon as that's done, I can import the video and put it in Dropbox right on my phone. And then right out of Dropbox, I can copy the link and put it in my email and send it off to my agents right on my phone. So everything is just super easy that way. So iMovie is fantastic. If you have Final Cut, that's also a really incredible way to edit. It probably has a few more options in terms of what you can do with editing, but again, it's not necessary to invest in like Final Cut or some sort of program like that. Great, so that's it in terms of equipment that you need. Just to recap, you need some sort of solid background. A blue color like this is fantastic, but if all you have access to is a plain white wall, that's fantastic too. Just a note on that, what you're gonna have to do with lighting is just make sure that there aren't like a ton of shadows behind you. I find that on like a blue cloth background like this, the shadow is a lot less intense, like you can see it right now, than on a white wall behind you. So usually if you step away from the wall a little bit, sometimes that can help, but usually it's just messing with the lighting and seeing what makes it the least bit shadowy, right? So on that, lighting is the next thing that you have to consider. Also make sure you have a tripod. If you get a ring light, a tripod is just a part of it, so that's totally fine. If you don't get a ring light and you just get a lighting kit, then you also should invest in a tripod that holds whatever camera you have. You can usually get like iPhone attachments for your tripod if that's what you're using. A camera of some sort, right? And then some sort of like editing software. iMovie just on your iPhone, if that's what you have, is super easy. And I don't know if like Android, I don't know Android, so I don't know what sort of thing that is, but I'm sure that there are options on there as well. So now I just want to talk through just some of the like common mistakes that people make when they're self-taping, or just like some things to think about when you're creating a self-tape. Okay, so here's your first lesson of what not to do, right? Let's talk about framing. So if you can see here, I'm framed like to about like my waistline, like middle of my body, and then my head is kind of cut off. Or even here, like you can see my whole face, but my hair is cut off. Usually unless they tell you differently in like the email for your audition, the best framing is something like this. Here, let me show you here. Let's see. Great. So if you notice here, I have like about an inch above my head and then kind of mid-chest, yeah? So that's kind of the default when it comes to self-tapes. This way they can kind of see your whole face. They can see enough of your body that they can kind of see facial, gestures, right? And like how you're holding your body, which is also great. But you're close enough that they can kind of see what's happening in your eyes, because that's really the most important thing when it comes to film, like on camera acting, is that they want to be able to see your eyes. And I get that theater is different, but even if you're auditioning for theater on self-tape, this is still an on-camera medium, right? Like the audition is in an on-camera medium, so make sure that you are communicating what you're feeling, not just through your body, but also through your eyes and your facial expressions. Great, so another thing with self-taping, right, is where am I looking, right? Like, where is my reader? Because unless you're doing, no, even if you're doing a monologue, honestly, either your reader or your character is like off screen, right? So never do what I'm doing. Never look straight into the camera when you're doing a self-tape, right? You want your reader to be placed somewhere outside of the frame. So my reader, I might place like here if I'm talking to somebody. If I'm talking to somebody who's taller than me, maybe slightly up. I could place them on this side, kind of in a similar place, or down, kind of closer to my phone. If I'm talking to a child or something, maybe I can place them down here or down here on this side, right? But kind of the rule that I have heard, one of my friends said this in a self-tape class that he taught, was the rule is kind of no further than 1 foot or 1.5 feet off frame, okay? Because then they're getting too much of your profile. Again, with this on-camera medium, you want to make sure that they can see your eyes. So place your reader somewhere outside of the frame. Do not look straight into the camera. Woohoo! We are moving right along. So another thing to think about, right, and this is kind of a way to add some variety to your self-tape, is I think our default is to just kind of go to the center of the screen, right? But oftentimes I like to place my body slightly right or left of center and then place my reader somewhere over here so that they're getting kind of this perspective from the side. And then like if I have sides, like more than one scene, then I maybe will do one facing this direction and another one kind of facing this direction, just to kind of add some variety. It also helps if like in the middle of the scene there's a shift or something, maybe you can start this way and then kind of go to this side when you see something different, or maybe here. If there are multiple characters that you're talking to, you can kind of shift as you speak to them, again, to add some variety to your self-tape without adding too much movement, right? Great, and kind of the last thing that I want to talk about is like the angle of your self-tape, right? And we can practice some of these things when we're actually in the class. I'm sure it'll come up, but just some things to think about. Like here, the camera is a little bit under where my eye line is, but basically it's kind of a straight on shot, which usually works best for a self-tape. Here's some things not to do. Okay, so here I've changed the angle of the camera so that it's above me and kind of looking down at me. Usually for a self-tape, this isn't the best thing to do. If you notice, it kind of makes me look small and kind of feels disconnected here, versus when it's like right in front of my face. But there are exceptions to this rule. So if you are doing like a very specific, like, for example, the thing that comes to my brain is like if you're auditioning for like Jack and Into the Woods or something, and you're in a scene where you're talking to the giant, this might be a really good way to do it, right? Because it shows like, oh my gosh, like I feel something is like right on top of me and kind of like overbearing to me. I am like the small, like weak thing in this scene. So in certain situations this could work, but most times it's kind of an awkward angle. Okay, so this is the opposite, right? The camera is underneath me and kind of looking up at me. So if I was to kind of place my reader here, you can see that you're kind of disconnected from me. It doesn't feel like you can see into my eyes or really tell what's happening. So this kind of under angle is weird. It's also not very flattering, right? You can't really tell like who you are or like what the dimensions of your body or your face are in this weird angle. So also not a great thing. Again, there are probably exceptions to this rule. Again, maybe if you're auditioning for the giant, you do it this way, right? And then you're like overbearing over the camera. But for the most part, it's better to kind of keep the angle straight forward. Great, we're back to our normal good framing here. The last thing that I want to talk about is slating. So usually slating is more for TV film auditions. They'll ask you to slate. And I know if you're kind of new to that world, you'll be like, oh my God, what does that mean? So what I usually do, usually they'll ask for your name, your height, and where you are based, your location. So I'll say something like, hi, my name is Namuna Cisse. I'm 5'6" and I'm based in New York City. So as simple as that, right? Or bass swear wherever you are, right? Sometimes if I have a reader with me, which, you know, one day we'll be able to have readers with us, I will have them kind of take my face, I slate, say what I'm doing, and then what they'll do is they will kind of go down, oh, I can't really do it with this thing, down my body and then back up my body, way cuter than that, so that you kind of get your full body in the shot, right? They can see your body as well. Some TV film casting directors will ask for a full body shot, in which case you try to get the camera as far away from you as possible and try to get your full body in one shot instead of doing the up and down thing. I don't ever do that unless they ask for it, because it's just very annoying, because oftentimes cameras aren't very good at that. But if they do ask for it, make sure that you find a way to do that. So even if they don't ask for a slate with TV film, I always give a slate anyway. And with theater, what I do is I put a title card in front of my audition, which you saw at the beginning of this. Maybe I'll put another example here. So that they know what my name is and what role I am auditioning for. Great, so that's it, y'all. Those are the things that I wanted to cover. Let me show you the brands of the ring light and this background that I have, but there are many options out there, so you don't have to get these brands, just if you want somewhere to start. Okay, this is like really cute, y'all. Okay, this is the name of the background, Kewi. I don't quite know how to pronounce it, but that's it. I will put it in an email maybe or something. And then this is the name of my ring light, Niwer. I love it. I really, really love it. I think it was around like $82 or something like that. So if that's not in your budget, totally cool. There are some online that are way cheaper. Usually they're smaller, so you like put them up on a table, but they also work just fine. And also what I love about this ring light is that it comes in that travel case. So if I'm not going to be auditioning like where I am in my own room, I can just pack it up and take it with me wherever I'm going, and it's like super easy, simple setup. Okay friends, that is it for my basics and fundamentals of self-taping. If you don't have the funds to like purchase any of this stuff before we have class, that's like totally okay. Don't overstretch yourself right now, unless you think that you're actually going to be doing a lot of self-tape soon, in which case you might want to figure it out. But it's not necessary for our class. I just wanted you to have a resource to go to when you are looking and maybe investing in some of these things, and just some things to think about when you are creating the self-tapes for our class, so that everybody kind of has that basic, you know, knowledge level before we start. And of course, like, we're all gonna make mistakes with some of these things in class, but hey, guess what? Mistakes are how you learn. So I hope that you make mistakes. I hope you do these things wrong, because then we can talk about it and kind of just make sure that we remember it for when a real self-tape comes along. So if you have any questions about any of these things, if something wasn't clear, you can shoot me an email. It is namuna.cisse@gmail.com. And in the meantime, enjoy making your self-tapes, and I cannot wait to get in the Zoom room with you. Bye, y'all.